Welcome to the Imperial Truth. I am Eric, your host, and today we are going to continue our discussion of sort of Mechanicum rules. So, gradually, we'll work our way through all of the Mechanicum things and have a conversation about all of the aspects of this army. And today we're going to focus on the Priests of Mars, the leaders of our Mechanicum Taghmata. So, when we are talking about a Mechanicum, command options, we are talking about our Archmagos and our Magos and the ones that are on the abeyance. Our Cruciator, is that the way this is pronounced? Magisterium, which is another command option we have. They're essentially the law enforcement option of our Mechanicum force. And then I'm also going to include our troops choice, which are tech priests, which function a lot like sort of mini Magos in our army. So they're going to get lumped in here as well. Our Archmagos and our Archmagos on Abeyant, those are our high command options. And as a reminder to a previous video, for whatever reason, our high command options don't give us an extra reaction point, but it does still unlock special apex attachments. The Magos or Magos on an Abeyant, that's our command slot. And then the our Cruciator, our Crutor, Magisterium is also a command option. And then tech priests are troops options, and they are our only troops options in the game. There are a few rules that we should talk about before we get into the individual units, and these rules apply to multiple of these options. So they're worth mentioning. So Master of Machines means that this model can join automata units. Usually you cannot join automata units. Masters of Machines can. Automata guys are automatically pass status checks. This is something that came up in a previous video, and I will be doing a video on sort of like some clarifications and some things that I got wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting this one right. So this has been mentioned a few times. Automata automatically pass status effects. That is just a rule for automata. That is how it's phrased. They are treated as automatically passing. In the Mechanicum book, it specifically says that if we have someone like a tech priest or a priest or Magos who joins a unit, that they can be routed in combat. So it says specifically that in the resolution subphase, they can still be routed. So as far as I know, the way that this is written is at no point are we told that automata cease to fail status checks just because there's somebody in the unit who's not an automata. And then in addition, we are called out that we cannot route, or we can route if we are beaten in combat, but we wouldn't route from panic weapons, and we wouldn't route from shooting attacks because those don't happen in the resolution subphase. And if I'm getting this wrong, if there's a rule that says if you join an automata unit, they lose their automatic passing of status checks, let me know. But yeah, this is the way it reads to me. And I can't find anything that changes that. So Master Machines, we put a guy in there, they're immune to status effects for all intents and purposes. Battlesmith is another rule that we have a lot. It is during the movement phase, before or after you move, you can make an intelligence check. If you pass that intelligence check, an automata, walker, or vehicle unit that's within 6 inches of you can gain wounds or hull points back, where X is the number of Battlesmith, which is pretty cool. And it allows you to remove a number of statuses equal to the Battlesmith on a vehicle. So we can do either, but we can't do both in the same Battlesmith check. We will get back to that later. This is pretty cool and a pretty neat ability. I use a lot to just pop wounds back on my automata units when they get hurt. So if you did not kill one of my Castellex, it will be back at full health the following turn. It is worth noting that there is an interesting interaction here between our Macrotech Prime Advantage, I think it's called Prime Conveyors, which gives us +2 hull points. Now, +2 hull points makes our hull point value the current value, not the base value. And Battlesmith specifically restores hull points up to your base value. So if I have a Triaros conveyor and it takes 4 wounds, getting it from hull point 9 to hull point 5, and I Battlesmith it for with the Battlesmith 4 guy, I can only restore 2 wounds to it, or two hull points to it, because the other 2 were the current value. They're above and beyond. I would encourage you to ask in the FAQ email, and just send that over to GW just to see if that's the way it really works. But that's the way it reads in the rules currently. Comptroller is another rule that we get a lot. This is number of victory points is scored is increased by X when the unit controls an objective. Yeah, again, somebody pointed out, a couple people pointed out actually, that Vanguard specifically says that you can only ever score 1 point, as does support, which I understand the way that reads, and I don't know. I'll play it the way that disadvantages me the most until we get an FAQ, because that's usually what I default to, is what is the, if something is inconsistent, I'll take the worst of them just to be fair to people. But that doesn't, logically, that seems like a really poorly written word, right? Or that really poorly written rule. And here's why. If you don't bring Cybernetica, that means you literally can only use this on Thalax, who are jump infantry, and you're probably not attaching a Magos to, or tech thralls. And that's it. That's all this will work for, because Automata can't control objectives unless you're Cybernetica, and everybody else has either Vanguard or support. So you can't put it on Ursarax or Myrmidons or Thanatars, right? Like it just doesn't work well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like the way it works. And if that is the way it's supposed to work, then it's a useless rule. You're never going to get it unless you're running Cybernetica, which really sucks that they would shoehorn you into that specific tech arcana. All right. Cybertheurgy, and maybe we'll do a whole video on Cybertheurgy sometime. We should probably do a whole video on Cybertheurgy. So Cybertheurgy is sort of our magic system, manipulating all the technical stuff. And in Cybertheurgy, you have your Cybertheurgic statuses, which are Quicken, Fortify, and Guide. Quicken gives us +1 movement and initiative, which is pretty handy. Or if you're a vehicle, it's going to give you +3 movement, which is kind of silly. Honestly, Fortify gives you +1 strength and toughness, which is actually pretty handy, especially when you're talking about something like a Castellax or a Thanatar, where you can kind of push these numbers into the point where people get really frustrated. For example, giving a Thanatar toughness 9 against Melta-guns or multi-meltas is kind of silly, because now they're only wounding on 5s. And it really reduces that incoming damage. Or if your vehicle, it gives you +1 AV to a maximum of 14 to one of your armor facing, so front, side, or rear. So that's also very handy. Guide is +1 to ballistic skill and weapon skill, which is honestly probably the one we're going to be using most of the time, but those are all available. There are a few Cybertheurgic abilities that you can invoke. I want to use the word cast, but it's invoke is the word I think they use in the rules. And these are Overcharge Reactors, which gives any of those 3 statuses to Automata, Walkers, or Vehicles. Programming Interrupt, which gives any of those statuses to Automata or Vehicles, and it also gives them a free reaction. So you get to do a reaction without spending a reaction point. Keep in mind that you technically still have to have a reaction point available, even if you're not going to spend it, in order to use those. Go look at the reaction point rules if you're confused about that, or ask in the comments. I'm happy to try and answer and point out to where it is. But you have to have a reaction point to do them. And you do take your Cybertheurgy right away. So you would take your damage immediately after, your Cybertheurgic feedback immediately after doing your reaction, which is not a huge deal, but it is worth noting that you do take it right then. Fleshknit Protocols gives us Fortify or Quicken to lock Armada, which is not bad for our Ursarax, but it's just not. Somebody said something about using them on tech thralls, and that just seems like a terrible idea, because Cybertheurgy, it's just I don't know. It's anyway. We can have a conversation about tech thralls in another video. Deactivate limiters for reductor is very handy because it gives you Aegis of Pain. So Aegis of Pain is fear on your Thanatars, your Thalaxi, which is great. I love that. It's hard to work in a reductor person, Magos, in addition to everything else I run. And then Fury of Agents is Fortify or Guide on Myrmidax, which is great, getting Myrmidax up to weapon skill, ballistic skill. They base ballistic skill 4, so they go to ballistic skill 5. It's really good, and even giving them +1 toughness is pretty good too. In addition, we have sort of an assortment of these guys that don't give you a status, but instead do some fun thing. So Cogitator Purge strips Cybertheurgic statuses and does damage when it happens, which is pretty cool. Honestly, I think it's a neat idea. You're not going to just bring it stock though, right? Because why would you bring it stock when you're not facing anybody who's running Mechanicum? So there are times to use it and times not use it. Omega Protocols doesn't actually work in the game. We did a whole video about the broken rules of Mechanicum. There's like a little tiny sliver of time that you could use it in a turn, but it clearly isn't meant to be that sort of that finicky. So it just doesn't work very well. Unseal the Portal is funny. It's an emergency disembarkation reaction or ability. The other video I'm doing this week is about how land raiders are very broken. Unseal the Portals could be funny, to be like, oh, yep, nope, you have to get your guys out, and now I can shoot them. It's potentially silly. And Chastise the Machine Spear is actually very, I think, very compelling. It applies stunned or suppressed to a vehicle. And then what you could do is you could then start to try and glance that vehicle a lot, or just leave it stunned or suppressed so that it can't do things. That is also completely reasonable. So those are our basic Cybertheurgies that we can use. We also get a high-tech Arcana, and again, in the upcoming video where I go through some mistakes I've made, I said that high-tech Arcana isn't a thing. It turns out that high-tech Arcana is a thing. On the first page with all of your Apex attachments, at the very tippy top, there is a rule about high-tech Arcana. It is a real rule. It's kind of stupid that that's where the rule is, but that's fine. It's a little bit like hiding stuff. I guess they assume all Mechanicum players are trying to find great mysteries in the universe. And I'm going to go through these quickly because we've already gone through them in a different video where we talk about everything about Mechanicum. So, and as a quick note, again, something that was corrected in a previous video, just because I want to be forward with you guys about this stuff. I thought that you only get these if you match whatever your Archmagos is. So I have a Cybernetica Archmagos, then he unlocks all the Cybernetica abilities for anybody else who's Cybernetica. That is not the case. You actually get your high-tech Arcanas for everybody. So if I have a Myrmidax guy in my Cybernetica army, the Myrmidax guy gets the Myrmidax rules, which is freaking phenomenal. And I appreciate the person that pointed that out, and I will call you out in a future video and thank you for correcting me. But yeah, if I make mistakes, definitely correct me. I am still learning 3rd edition too. So Archimandrite, that just gets around our faction restrictions. So we can now mix our Comptroller guys, which is probably not as great given the way the Comptroller works. And we can mix units without losing the like cool and in checks and things like that, which is fine. It's passable with the way that Comptroller apparently works. I don't think it's as good as I thought it was at first, but it's fine. It's totally good. Cybernetica is freaking great if you want to run Automata. It allows your Automata to score if they have an Archmagos, a Magos, or a Tech Priest in the unit, which is really huge and very handy. Lacrimata heals your Tech Thrall units with Battlesmith, which is compelling. If you're going to run tech thralls, you probably want a tech priest or a Magos with Lacrimata kind of babysitting them and bringing them back every turn. We'll talk about Myrmidax later because it's phenomenal. Malagra is really good for narrative games. It's very cute. We talked about it previously. I think if you want to run a campaign or a game against somebody that's narrative and be like, hey, you're going to play Dark Mech and I'm going to try and hunt you down, it's very fun. If you're not doing that specific one thing, it's probably not a great one to choose. Macrotech gives you 6+ invuln saves to a vehicle that's not a super heavy within 3 inches, which is very cool because it applies to even allied vehicles, which can be kind of interesting. But you just get it on one vehicle. So if I have a Magos and the Magos is between 2 vehicles, I have to choose which one gets the 6+ save. But 6+ invuln saves are no joke, especially when we can't shroud as a reaction. And then Reductor gives you strength bonus if your target is a fortification, a building, or a stationary vehicle, which is apparently a thing in the rules. And your opponent can't do shield wall reactions against you, which is fine-ish. It's fine. I don't think it's, if you want to do it for flavor's sake, please do. It's disappointing to me that they reduced the order reductor to that. It's not great. But as far as I see in the rule, there is no designation that it has to be attached to a reductor unit. And maybe I just missed it. Maybe I'm just reading over it. But if you don't, then that means you could attach a reductor guy to a Thanatar Calyx, the guy with the big gun, the Solux las gun. And that would get your gun to strength 11, which is kind of cool if your opponent's stationary. I don't know. I don't think it's great. It's just worth kind of thinking about and doing things with. In terms of our Mechanicum Wargear, the things that we can put on our Magos, we're not going to go through every single thing. That would be wild. But we're going to go through some that I think are kind of important to understand and think about. So the first one is Cortex Controller. Our automata can make reactions. This is huge, guys. This is huge. Being able to do reactions with a unit of Castellax is pretty fun. So definitely consider this if you're going to run automata. Being able to do reactions is a big thing. Even just being able to like move off of an objective when a Vanguard unit gets too close is a big deal. Augury scanners, you can't shroud against this target. Now, again, in the Land Raider video that we're releasing this week as well, I talk about shrouds and how powerful they are. I don't know how much it's going to come up. You're just going to have to figure it out. If your opponent really likes their shroud saves, or they're running an army that, I don't know, gets shrouds all the time or something, then you probably want augury scanners. But I don't think augury scanners are as important in 3rd edition as they were in 2nd edition, because the way that they interact with the game is very different. What I think is important to segue is the Cognoscignum, which is an int check to something in range. So you have your Magos with the Cognoscignum. It can see a model. There is no range, so long as you can see the model. You do an int check. If you succeed on your int check, then indirect fire weapons, so barrage weapons, can roll their ballistic skill to hit, which is freaking incredible. So your Karachnos can just hit anything on the board. Your plasma mortars can hit anything on the board. You just have to be able to see it with the Magos. And that's really, really strong. I would definitely recommend taking at least one of these. I personally have a unit of 5 Castellax. Now, somebody asked if I would do a video on building an army, and that'll be for next week is on the list. But I have a unit of 5 Castellax, Castellax Battle Maniple. I've got 3 guys in that unit with the bolters and the blades, and then 2 guys in the unit with flamers and the claw and the clampy claws, the regular things, so that they're all about the same points. And the reason for the flamers is to apply panic to a unit before I charge in, which is handy. But in that unit is a Magos that always has a Cognos Signum, because usually that unit of 5 Castellix are moving up the board. They're trying to get on objectives. They're going to be seeing most of the things. And then what I'll do is I'll just, target something and be like, I'm going to shoot that thing, and then hit it with the barrage weapons in that turn. Cyber Familiar, following up on that, gives you -2 to all your int checks. So that is your Cognos Signum check, that is your Battlesmith check, that is your Cybertheurgy check. It is an expensive upgrade. It is 20 points, but I think it's worth it all the time, all the times, for that reason. Servo Arm is +1 to the wounds or hull points for a Battlesmith. I don't think that this is as useful. I think Machinator Array is going to be better on your Magos or your Archmagos. And I think that servo arms are probably better on your Tech Priests, just in general. We'll talk about sort of those interactions in a minute. But here's my logic for this. The Archmagos gives you a Battlesmith of 4, and all of your Castellax are 4 wounds. So you never need that +1 to the wounds that you restore, I guess, against Castellax. Against Thanatars, my experience has been either your opponent kills them or they don't kill them. And again, healing 3 or 4 off of your Thanatar every single turn is probably completely sufficient. I don't know that you need the extra 1 usually. And Magos is our Battlesmith 3. So again, they're fine with the Castellax. So usually this is not going to be a big deal. It becomes a big deal if you want to run a bunch of vehicles, which might have 7 hull points, and your opponent almost kills a vehicle and you want to bring it completely back to full. That could be useful. Armor Bane on demand through Melt Bombs is fine. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Rad Grenades are compelling. Giving Phage out on as you need is fine. Again, I haven't really struggled wounding things in this edition, but if you find yourself doing it, you can definitely pick these up. And Nuncio boxes give us an opportunity to remove a status during the start phase for that unit. And again, I just don't see this being particularly useful for us, because the automata can't get statuses. You're probably not putting a Tech Priest or a Magos with a unit of Ursarax or Thalax, because that'll slow them down a lot. It's hard to status effect Tech Thralls, and I feel like if you status effect the Tech Thralls, they're pretty much dead anyway. So I wouldn't invest more points into that. And then Myrmidons are cool 10 because they're heavy. So I guess you could. Yeah, I don't see it being a huge issue. But if you had success with it, let me know. We can have a conversation about it. And teach me what I'm missing here. If you think I'm missing something, it just doesn't seem particularly useful in these contexts. In terms of our Mechanicum Magos Wargears, this is another subset of other things. There are 2 options here: the Rad Furnace and the Machinator Array. The Rad Furnace basically allows all models in the combat to reduce their toughness by 1, unless you have a Rad Furnace, the Cybernetica keyword, or the Automata keyword. And this has a really interesting interaction with challenges, because if you challenge somebody, you are no longer considered to be in the combat. So you pull those models aside and they're in their own combat. So it doesn't actually affect it doesn't affect the actual combat, like with all the little dudes, unless you're not challenging, which is fine. But it also reduces everybody's toughness by 1. I don't know. It's I guess if you put it in a unit of Cybernetica units, or automata, you could make it work. But again, Castellax aren't. They're not failing to wound guys. That's not where this is. And instant death isn't a thing anymore. So I don't know. I haven't taken one, and I don't think it's particularly useful. Machinator arrays, on the other hand, are you basically get to Battlesmith twice in a turn. You can't use a servo arm, so you can't get the +1 to each of those. But you can do it twice in a turn, which is incredibly useful for vehicles or Thanatars, because they have a lot of wounds. So if you take 7 wounds, I could remove all of them, possibly. If I have a vehicle with 2 statuses and missing 3 hull points, I can remove all of that because I can Battlesmith to remove the 2 statuses, and then I can Battlesmith again to remove all the hull points, which is very, very useful and makes our vehicles a lot better than other armies. I mean, I know that Machinator arrays exist outside of Mechanicum, but we can get them on demand. The real question I have for you is, does this allow us to Lac Armada back 8 guys in a turn if I have an Archmagos? If I have a Lac Armada Archmagos, I can Battlesmith to return Tech Thralls to a unit when they've died. He has Battlesmith 4. So I could Battlesmith and then Battlesmith again and bring 8 guys back. That seems kind of compelling. I can't see anything where it doesn't allow that. So I think it does. But let me know what you think in the comments, and we can have a discussion about it. Happy to hear your thoughts. And if you've done this, let me know if it works. Like, being able to tar pit with them seems decent. I'm just really worried about the fact that I'm spending 400 points on 40 guys that are 6-up saves. That just doesn't seem particularly useful. In terms of our weapons, there are a lot of weapons options that we have. The ones that I want to call out here that I think are notable, that are worth mentioning, are the Paragon Blade. Paragon Blade, AP2, critical hit 6+, very interesting for challenges. We're going to struggle in challenges, just be honest. We're not going to win a lot of challenges, unfortunately. And the Paragon Blade gets us a little bit closer to winning challenges. So that's worth noting. The Corpuscent save is interesting. I don't know how I would use it, though. It has shock, pinning, suppressed, and stun. So if I hit a vehicle with it, you get all 3. I think if you hit a Dreadnought with it, you get all 3 too, which seems like a terrible idea, but you could do it in theory. So if I run up and I smack a Land Raider, I can give it all 3, which seems kind of interesting. I've not gotten it to work ever, but it's cute, right? It's kind of a nice idea. Graviton guns seem good, though. 3-inch blast, shock pin, so we can put it on vehicles, and pinning 1, also good. You're probably going to do a wound, so that is very reasonable. So definitely consider Graviton guns. Also consider Chain Fists. Chain Fists are +6 strength, which is really good. It's Armor Bane, also really good, and it's damage 2, and it has shred. That's a good weapon. It does remove one of your attacks, and it hits slow. But again, if you're charging into a vehicle and punching a Chain Fist into that vehicle, I think you're pretty likely to do some damage. Phase Plasma Fusel, very good. It's AP3, breaching 5+, very good gun. I have this on one of my Magos, is pretty much stock. And the other one I have on one of my Magos is stock. The guy who runs with the Castellax is the Irad Cleanser. It has Phage Toughness, which is pretty good. If I do a damage with it, or an unsaved wound, you will reduce your toughness by 1 for the rest of the game, which is very good. And also has Panic 1. So it's just one more chance to do Panic before we charge in the Castellax. And if I panic you, if I give you a status effect, you hit an initiative 1, which means we can kind of roll over you and do some damage and probably win that combat. Now, let's talk about our 4 options for these guys and sort of what I think is notable about them, what I think is interesting. And we'll start with the big guy, our Archmagos. So there's a lot of chatter among Astartes players that like, oh, I'm just not going to bring a Praetor because I don't want to give up Slay the Warlord points, which honestly, if you are the type of person that's the way you think and that's the way you play, screw you. Screw you. It's a narrative game, guys. Like, screw you. Bring your guy. Let's do a challenge. Let's have a big fight and let's slay the warlord. Let's have some fun. It's not about gaming out the best way to win, but with our Archmagos, our notable stats here are ballistic skill 6, which gives us into the crit hits territory with our guns, which is kind of fun. He is toughness 6. Toughness 6 is huge. It's so tough. And remember, we can, if we have Cybernetica, we can, well, I guess if you have Cybertheurgy, you can put Fortify on the unit and you will get Fortify on you, which means you have a toughness 7 Archmagos, which is really, really good. They have 6 wounds, which again is absolutely huge. That's a lot of wounds to cut through. You're not necessarily going to die in the first round of a challenge, which means you can always accept the challenge, pull that guy out of the challenge, so he's not hitting your other dudes. And then you can just run away from that challenge and you'll be okay. Not as impressive, but still pretty good for Mechanicum. This guy has weapon skill 5, which is decent. Tax 4, which again is pretty solid. It's pretty decent. Again, especially for Mechanicum. The defensive stats on them are outstanding. 2+ save, 4+ invuln, 5+ feel no pain. I know it's sad to lose our 3-up invuln from 2nd edition, but a 5-up feel no pain plus a 4-up invuln, I think, is statistically better. I haven't done the math, but I'm pretty sure it is. And this guy is int and cool 10. So those are also really important for our rules. Int 10 means that we are succeeding on Battlesmith pretty much all the time, and casting pretty much any Cybertheurgy we want most of the time, and very rarely failing. Battlesmith is 4, which means we're removing 4 hull points from a vehicle or adding 4 wounds back to a model. Again, a huge number here. I don't think we're normally going to want a servo arm on this guy. It would be much better to use the Machinator array and just Battlesmith twice. Firing protocols 2, so I can shoot my gun and my pistol at the same time. Pretty handy. We can't kind of trick these guys out with a bajillion guns like we used to, but it's still pretty good. And we have access to our Apex attachments. So this guy's going to unlock our special Apex attachments that are very useful for our game, for our army building, and have some really flavorful prime advantages and other things that we can access. Our Magos is sort of the command option. Its major stats are ballistic skill 5, which means that guide gets us into crit territory, which is pretty handy. Toughness 5, which is still very durable. Wounds 4, which is better than Centurions. So you're more durable than the Space Marine equivalent. 2-up save, 5-up invuln, and 5-up feel no pain. Again, very good, very solid defensive stats here. Int and cool of 9, which are still very good. With combat veterans, we can get that to in cool of 10, which puts us into Archmagos territory. And then if we put in a cyber familiar, well, that's -2 to all of our checks, which is phenomenal. I did not have Comptroller. Oh, it did have Comptroller. So that Archmagos is Comptroller 2, which is fine. Magos is also Comptroller 2, which means that I guess if you're running Cybernetica, you get to score extra points. If you're not running Cybernetica, your tech thralls might score more points. I don't know. I really hate the way that that's apparently worded. Oh, it really bothers me. All right, Battlesmith 3, great. Keeps us in the territory where we don't need a servo arm to completely restore Castellex. You can put on Magos with some Castellex, and if your opponent doesn't kill a Castellex, you can always bring them right back to the full health, which is cool. Firing protocols 2, so I can shoot my gun and my pistol at the same time. Officer of the Line 2, every single one of these I add, I get 2 auxiliary detachments, which is really big because we need auxiliary detachments in Mechanicum. We need a lot of them. We can put either of those guys on an Abeyant, which is fun. An Abeyant gives you implacable advance, which we're going to see again in a minute, which gives your ranged weapons assault, unless they're heavy ordnance. So you can use any weapon that you have to volley fire. You do explode on a 6, which is fine. I don't think it's going to come up a lot of times, but you could do it. In addition, you get bulky 7, which means you take up 7 spots in a transport because he's just so massive. And you get command throne, which is really big. So let's pause to talk about command throne. Command throne is I take an intelligence check if I use a reaction, or I can. If it's successful, I reduce the cost of that reaction by 1. So again, I need to have the reaction point before I do this, but I might not have to spend it. Please keep in mind that if you fail this check, you take Cybertheurgy feedback, which is not great. In addition, there are a bunch of pluses and minuses for it. So if I'm out of range or I can't see the command throne, the number goes down a lot. So it's kind of fun. It's neat. I haven't played with it at all. I should eventually make a guy on a command throne to sort of have that option, or just build a command throne to put my normal dude on. The Abeyant has anti-grav, but it's still only speed or movement 6. So it's not going to keep up with the Thalax or Ursarax. It's really sad that we don't have a good option for jump Archmagos anymore. We get heavy +1 to our cool. Can't rush, can only use our movement for setup moves, -1 to focus rolls. It's fine. Heavy's a good rule and a bad rule. It's a good rule in that it's well written. How's that? You get +1 toughness and leadership for your band, but -1 to your initiative. So you hit a little bit more slowly because you're up on this big thing trying to hit people. So it's fun. It's kind of cool to think about. If you wanted to build like a big giant robot Archmagos, I think in the book Cybernetica, spoiler alerts, there's an Iron Warrior who gets like shoved in a giant automata body and like fights the protagonist at the end. And yeah, that would make a great Abeyant model. It's like I'm just in a giant war suit stomping around. Or maybe I like scavenged a Contemptor Dreadnought and ripped the Space Marine out of it and shoved my Archmagos in there, and now they're in a big giant Dreadnought chassis or something. Like you could have a lot of fun with this. All right. The other thing that's worth noting is Myrmidex, which is huge. So man, it's if I didn't need Cybernetica to run all of my models, I think Myrmidex is the way I would go. So choosing Myrmidex as your high-tech Arcana gives you +1 wounds. Already great. We talked about how an Archmagos already has a lot of wounds. It gives you the battle meditation rule, which gives you a 6-up feel no pain in challenges, and a 5-up feel no pain if your opponent's weapon skill is greater than yours. It's not a huge deal for the Magos or the Archmagos who already have the 5-up feel no pain, but it's actually pretty handy for our tech priests who could also theoretically be Myrmidex and accept challenges. So I like that. You get Implacable Advance, which is the same rule we just saw on the Abeyant, which basically gives you assault on your ranged weapons unless they're heavier ordnance. You get Bulky 3, and if you already have Bulky, it adds 3 to it. So that gets your Abeyant up to Bulky 10, which does nothing in the game, really, but it's kind of funny. And then you get +1, you get the heavy rule as well. So you get that +1 cool, you can't rush, you can only use your movement for setup moves, not your initiative as well. And you get -1 if in your focus rolls. So these guys are usually going to hit last in challenges, but they are really decent in challenges and are worth it. And if you run Myrmidex, you get the Myrmidex special challenge, which is basically I get to shoot you in the face before we do anything, before anybody swings. Which is kind of fun too. I really like that rule. The Arcrutor Magisterium is, these guys are essentially the police or the enforcers of the Mechanicum. They go around making sure that everybody is adhering to worship of the machine god appropriately, and so they hunt down traitors and people that are bad. Their weapon skill 6 because of this, which is freaking crazy for Mechanicum. Weapon skill 6 is really high for us. Their initiative 4, which is not great. It's great for Mechanicum. It's not great overall. It's just they hit as fast as a Space Marine. That's not, you're not going to win challenges with that, guys. But they do have 5 attacks, which is again pretty solid. Their ballistic skill 5, which is fine. Their toughness 5, which again is fine. They're going to be able to hold their own against a lot of sort of Centurion level threats. I don't know that you're going to put them against a champion model or Paragon model or like a Praetor. They're not going to kill a Primarch, but they can do some damage against sort of the lower level threats that we're going to face. They have Infiltrate 9, which lets them get really close to the enemy. I don't know that you're going to want to do that all the time, but it's interesting to do. They have Battlesmith 2, so they can heal things. They can fix automata. You could put them with a unit of automata. And they have Firing Protocols 2, which lets you shoot with 2 guns, which again it's fine on these guys. But yeah, they're definitely worth mentioning. They are an option that we can run. And while the actual model is Forge World, it would be pretty fun to take like maybe like one of the Warhammer 40,000 Secutor models, basically their infantry in the 40k Mechanicus, and Skitarii, one of the Skitarii guys, and convert them. That would be fun. You could probably do a really fun conversion with that. Last but not least is our Tech Priest. This is the model I use for my Tech Priest, and it's great. I just love it. I think it looks very Tech Priesty. It's the right size, I think, too. So notable stats here are Toughness 5, tougher than a Space Marine. It's still not bad. Int and Cool of 8, which again, if you pop in a Combat Veterans in here, that gets you to 9. If you pop in Cyber Familiar, that gets you to 10 or 11, depending on if you have Combat Veterans. That's still not bad. It's a 3+ save, so like a Space Marine. 6+ invuln, which is fine, not great, but not bad. And a 6+ Feel No Pain, which again is not bad. This guy does benefit from the Feel No Pain from Battle Meditation if you want to make them Myrmidex. But yeah, I think they're totally good to toss in a unit and kind of just babysit somebody. They have Comptroller 1, which again we've talked about before. It's probably not as good as what it seems, unfortunately. Battlesmith 2, which is good. If you give them a servo arm, that goes to Battlesmith 3 essentially, which again is going to heal your Castellax completely up. I usually have these guys sort of babysitting a Thanatar in the backfield and just kind of putting wounds back on it, and that sort of thing. Firing Protocols 2, they're 30 points base, and you can really get out of control with the cost. So, so 30 points base, you pop on, you probably want your Cyber Familiar to get you your +2 to invoking, or -2 to invoking technically. So that's 20 points. So now you've almost doubled your costs. Do you want to give them a weapon? I put mine in my backfield, so I usually don't put a weapon on them. I usually put a servo arm, so that's 15 points there. So, pretty soon, and 5 points for override or overcharge reactors. So now you're like 70 points for this guy that started as 30, right? Like it gets really expensive fast. They do have the Sergeant rule, which is kind of handy. You can use their stats for things, and you could technically make them a Master Sergeant if you want. I wouldn't usually, but you could. And they could accept challenges and stuff. So that's interesting. But yeah. So overall, let's talk about some considerations and wrap up for today. And hopefully this was kind of a helpful discussion. Again, if you have thoughts or disagreements or anecdotes or whatever you want to share, put them in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, share it to somebody who you think might like it, burn some incense for the machine god, all of the things. But let's talk about our considerations as we wrap up. Cortex controllers are almost always going to be useful if you are running automata. I think that it's probably a must take, just because otherwise you're not going to be able to react, and reactions are powerful. You're giving up free shooting if you don't. The Cognos Signum is probably useful if you bring a Thanatar Cavus or the Karaknos. Both of those are going to benefit from the Cognos Signum. I don't think it's an auto include because the Thanatar Cavus has ordnance range. So it's you could walk into line of sight and shoot something. And the Carachnos doesn't have ordnance or heavy at all. So you can just drive it where you need to see. But it's still worth potentially bringing on one model. I think Cyber Familiar is almost always going to be a useful upgrade. I put Cyber Familiar on every single one of my command options all the time. It's this auto include just because it's so handy. You could potentially get away with it if you wanted a really cheap tech priest that was just running around doing some things, but you're going to usually want Cyber Familiars. Servo arms, I like it on the Arctroller or the Tech Priest. Not a huge fan of servo arms on my Archmagos or Magos, just because their Battlesmith's already high enough. They don't really need the extra points. And then I think a Machinator array is really good if you're running Macrotech or running a lot of vehicles. Just being able to do your Battlesmith twice, remove all of the statuses, remove all of the damage, and then go back to being full is going to be really strong. And it's going to be pretty handy to play with. All right, that is it for us today. I hope you guys are enjoying this series, and yeah, I will catch you in the next video.